My name's Abi Thomas, and welcome to this brand new series of the Women of Steel podcast. It's my mission to continue the legacy of our Women of Steel campaign. Just like my predecessor, Nia Singleton, did, I want to talk to all those trailblazers, leaders, scientists, engineers, my friends, and those women I look up to. The 11% of amazing women who exist in a male-dominated steel industry. I want to have some honest chats with them, debunk some myths and find out what it's really like to be a minority in a male-dominated space. But most importantly, I want to find out how and when are we going to make a change. Join me on this journey with our Women of Steel. My first guest of this series is April Wilkinson, Head of Technical at Shotton Works. April is quite the record breaker. Not only was she Shotton Works' first and only female plant manager to date, but she's also one of 3 females on Shotton's senior management team. Passionate about encouraging young girls into STEM, April takes pride in her time spent in our industry and will be celebrating 2 decades in steel this year. She got her first taste of our industry on a summer placement. Now, I started as a placement myself, so I'm keen to learn more about her journey from placement student to senior manager. What was the climb like? Was she supported, empowered and uplifted along the way? What advice can she give to a young woman my age with big ambitions, aspiring to make a difference in their field, despite the obstacles and inequalities they may face? So let's jump straight in. So April, thank you for joining us on the Women of Steel podcast. You've been in the company for, well, it's coming up to 20 years now, isn't it, this year?
Makes me sound old, makes me feel old. Yeah, so this is, this year in August I'll have been working here at Shotton for 20 years.
But it all started at Manchester Metropolitan University, where you studied material science, right?
Yeah, that's right. So, sort of towards the end of my A-levels, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So a careers advisor and physics teacher sort of gave me probably the best advice I've ever had in my life, and he basically said to me if I did study material science, which was something I was interested in at the time as well, sort of part of physics, that I would be guaranteed to get a job before I, by the time I finished university, and wow. He was right. So
that's quite a promise, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure he didn't offer me, although it was a guarantee, I couldn't go back to him and say, "Oh, you were wrong," but I didn't have to, as it happened. So yeah.
So then you started at Shotton Works. You did a summer placement in 2002. So how did that come about?
So again, that was from a careers fair. It was Corus as it was then. So I did the placement. Really enjoyed it. I enjoyed. I didn't at that point really know what I wanted to do. I probably thought I didn't really want to work in a lab, but I enjoyed the interaction with people, being out on the shop floor, and as well as with people in technical. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah, and it just goes to show really that we need, teachers and engineers and all sorts of people in material science out in schools and showing young women this is something you can do, because arguably if that person wasn't there on that day in university, you might not be here today.
No, and it was interesting actually to since then I've been quite passionate about getting involved in some of the the STEM days that we've done to actually speak to young girls at school, because I think that's the other sort of limitation, that people don't really know quite how many vastly different careers
exactly.
there are within engineering. I think it's and within material science and within science, and I think often people think about it being like a sort of dirty, horrible place to work, and the reality is there are a lot of places where it's not, and it is a great place to work.
And it is high tech. Like, I've had a site tour today, and I'm amazed by the amount of sensors and everything. It's automated, and it's so impressive.
I think more and more as we go into the future as well, that gets quite excited about what that's going to look like. And even the operator of the future might be completely different in terms of the jobs that they do as well. And that's the other thing that I'm passionate about, is getting more and more female operators onto the site, because we are still as a minority underreported, I think.
Yeah, that's right. But going back slightly to 2002, so you've done your summer placement, and you obviously made a lasting impression on everyone here at Shotton Works, because we actually sponsored you in your final year of university.
Yeah. So that was at that time was really huge. Going into the final year, knowing that I'd been sponsored, and I was I'd been offered a work a job for when I finished, was meant I was able to just focus on studying in the last year, which was that was obviously brilliant for me. So and it was by then that was what I wanted to do. I always joked when I first started it on the line talking to the lads, I'd be saying, I'm living my dream. This is what I studied. This is what I wanted to do. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah. So what was it actually like being a young woman in the steel industry at that time in the early to mid 2000s?
I think the biggest challenge that was I did have lots of ideas, but there was a lot that I needed to learn. I worked with some really, really good people within the when I was process manager on the galv within the technical team. I worked I had some really good colleagues that supported me, and we did have fun. We had a good laugh. We had a good time. But some of the challenges were having ideas and having things that I wanted to change, and a lot of perhaps operators who were set in their ways, or even at the time they just were. Whenever I came to see them on the production line, I might be interrupting the radio or whatever it is that they were doing at the time. So it's really, I've learned a lot about how to to build a rapport with people. And okay, you're right, we'll listen to Ken Bruce's quiz first, and then we'll have a conversation. You sort of learn how to sort of work with people,
learn people's language and habits and everything. And it's building rapport, as you say, really, isn't it? But so being a galvanizing process manager, that sounds like quite a lot of responsibility at a young age.
It was good. I liked the process manager role, and I always say it's probably the best job that I've ever had, because I was given the responsibility, and I was really proud to take on that responsibility with lots of sort of coaching from my immediate supervisor, and even the plant manager at the time. I did get a lot of support, and again, we worked as a trio with the engineers, and it was really, really good to have that support and work well together.
Sounds like, as you said, really positive experience, good working environment and culture. But was there any pushback from being a woman in the workplace? Did anybody struggle with the fact that you were a manager?
I think initially it was we had a bit of banter in the office, but I think the biggest challenge was when I went on to shifts. So I did a 6-month period on shifts when I was about 25. So I was managing the two galvanizing production lines as a shift manager, and it was pretty much on day one when one of the sort of the old experienced fellas was in the process, and everyone tended to sort of listen to everything that Glenn had to say. And I came in and he's like, I've never worked for a woman in my life, and I'm so proud of this, because my immediate response was, I'm sorry, Glenn, I thought you were married. And to which everyone laughed, and I was like, really pleased with my very quick response. And then everyone laughed, and sort of that was that. Then he was great. He was fine with me the rest of the time.
So it paid off.
Definitely,
it definitely paid off.
And I think that definitely helped with my confidence to think, actually, I can do any job here. Like there isn't any limitation for any reason, being young, being female, any other reason why I can't do really what I want to do.
Great. So tell me a little bit about the jump then from those kind of roles to technical, because you have been in senior management for quite a while now, and you're one of the only females here in senior management. I think it's a handful of.
I think within Shotton, we're probably quite unique in our management team. So in our management team, out of the the 7 of us, there are three females, which is definitely different to necessarily senior management teams in this company and other companies as well. So I started off doing the plant manager role, and I believe I am the only female plant manager that we've had on this site.
Ever?
I think so, yes.
Wow.
But again, when I started doing the job, I remember thinking back to, Steve Randalls is doing this job, and then, sort of years later, I was still kind of thinking, I can't believe I've got Steve Randalls' job, so it was
syndrome almost.
And it did, I think take some time for me to sort of think, well, actually, no, I've been given this job because I am able to do it.
I'm good enough. I'm here for a reason.
And that's the thing that sort of I've then did that job for almost 5 years. It's a hugely demanding, hugely challenging role, and then I've moved now into technical to do the technical manager role, which is, it's I suppose different. It is, you know, a lot more sort of spending more time, you know, on the sort of academic side of things and thinking more about, you know, like, you know, how we can make things better, how we can improve things. And I equally like both. I think it's just, you know, different things. Yeah. Again, it's always a balancing act when you with any job role, being you know, any role being a full-time mum.
Yes,
that's a challenge, and I think it is certainly, you know, great that now we can have it all. But it does, you know, it does come with its challenges, certainly.
Yeah. So how have you dealt with that? Have you had a good support network around you? Or I imagine it must have been challenging at times, having this role with, you know, a lot of responsibility, and then going home to 3 children, you said you have.
Yeah. So I've got 3 children, and they are all 2 years apart, so they're quite close together. I mean, I think I have a new set of problems now that they're 10, 12 and 14, but earlier on it was quite demanding. So I did have a lot of support from you know, lots of family. You know, my parents were supportive. You know, I have certainly been very lucky. And, you know, now I'm in a situation where you know, both my partner, we both work full time, we both have children, and it is a case of us, you know, really doing everything we can to support each other, so we're both able to both have our careers, and, you know, they're equally as important as each other's. You know.
Yeah, and that's really encouraging for me to hear. And, you know, for someone in your position to have experienced those feelings of self-doubt, you know, it's completely normal. Everyone has it. And I actually spoke to Beth and Davis in marketing about this, and we were sharing our stories, and I was saying, you know, sometimes it does take somebody like you or a mentor to say it's fine to feel this way, it's completely normal, and you've got to have room for mistakes. But what I'm wondering is, would you encourage your own children into STEM subjects?
I keep telling my eldest, I've got 2 girls and a boy. So my two girls are older. So all 3 of them, I would try to. Okay, but I thought before I had children that I would have more of a say over what they might actually do than I'm finding that I do now with my 14-year-old who wants to live in a green van and drive around and do things to protect the environment. But
that sounds pretty cool.
It's still a STEM, you know, subject, and she's teaching herself French so that she's able to drive across to France in this green van. You know, so there's at least but I have said to her several times, you know, I would much prefer her to forget all that and become an electrical engineer, because she, you know, there's, you know, a similar sort of feeling that there's a guarantee of a job at the end of it if she, you know, if she did do that.
Yeah.
But I suppose there's a lot in, you know, I think not feeling that there's a restriction, that there's these jobs for boys and these jobs for girls, and even in, you know, 2023 it still feels like that.
Yeah,
there are still jobs that feel like that. So I think, you know, knowing that what's out there, the full picture of what job roles are available is really important. And I think I might moan about it sometimes, but I've been lucky enough to have a job for 20 years that I really love, because it's a lot of the subject that I'm interested in, and, you know, so I think doing something that you're passionate about is really, you know, something that you like is really important as well. So
I'm quite curious to know though, why Shotton all these years as well?
So I think you know, I have been lucky, or you know the job role has suited me, and I've been able to, you know, to be promoted, or the next job has been available when I want to be. I'm from Manchester; it's not too far to travel, so that's worked out well for me. And the people, you know, for a long time here on this site in Shotton, it has really felt like, you know, we're all part of something. We're part of it's a small site relative to, you know, sort of the bigger hub sort of site. But yeah, no, it's really felt like quite nice to work here. And one thing, I know everybody.
Yeah.
You know, and that's massive. You know, if I was to even look at going somewhere else to another company, I think you don't realise how valuable that is, just actually knowing who everybody is, and know who to ask for things, and, you know, you can get stuff done a lot easier when you know people. It's true.
Yeah, relationships are everything, really, aren't they? Yeah. And I'm, you know, still at the start of my career, 3 years in, and I'm finding as I'm networking more widely and visiting more sites outside of Ottawa where I'm based, I'm definitely finding the same, and it's good to build your own network. And
definitely.
I know some people say they're tribe and all words like this, but I guess it's true, really, and having those people to rely on and call upon, you know, when you
I think that's the thing. You get, you know, you get to know people, and then, you know, as long, you know, because that's the thing, you know, I'll do things for people, and then they'll help me out, and, and that's the kind of relationships that you do build. And I've got a lot of friends here, and I've, you know, even I'm still friends with a lot of people who've left as well, but it's over the years I have, you know, I think I've been lucky in that, you know, you come to work, but I've also, you know, met lots of people and made friends along the way as well. If you're having fun at work, then it never feels like work, does it really? But just to close, really, so I'm thinking, you know, there's about 50 graduates on site here at Shotton and hundreds across the UK. If there was a female graduate who's just joined the company, maybe in operations, technical, it could be HR, anywhere, that they want to get into your position, their goal is to be, you know, climb to the top, essentially. Have you got any advice that you could give them, or maybe there's qualities that you recognise in yourself and other female leaders that have really, you know, got them to where they are? I think it's interesting, because we do tend to have, you know, a lot of people, particularly graduates, that are very, very ambitious. And one of the things that I try, you know, I think we do tend to see that in a lot of the male graduates that are, you know, very, very confident that come in to work for us. It's not always the same with some of the female graduates, and I think that is you know, something that I don't really understand, you know, but everyone needs to see, you know, what they, you know, their potential, and it's really, for me, it's about that confidence. I think, you know, other than, and I also remind myself, where did I want to be 10 years ago? Because sometimes I feel like it's easy to, you know, once I'd had my children, I got to a point where I thought, do you know what, maybe I'm happy here, and it's a case of reminding myself, well, actually, that's not what I wanted 10 years ago. When I, you know, I didn't go to university to then become a mum and work you know, like, so sometimes, you know, like, so I understand all the reasons why people do that, and I think as a mum, I do think, because I've always worked full time, there are things that I've missed out on. But then I think I really want to encourage not only graduates, but even, you know, some of the women that work here and you know, probably are much more intelligent than me, much better at their jobs than I am. You know, think about what it is that you always wanted, and you can still have that. And you know, I think that's the other thing, is these opportunities to really push yourself in your career as your children get older, because that's what I'm seeing now, as things in theory should be getting a little bit easier, as in they're able to look after themselves for longer periods, and I can work later, and I don't have to be so hands-on with the children, although I'm sure there's other challenges to come with teenagers, you know. I'm not saying it's easy.
No, it's never easy, but I just find it's really interesting what you were saying there around confidence and self-doubt and everything, which we've spoken about at length already. But yeah, I think the most diverse workforce, and there's been loads of studies on this, I think, hasn't there? A more diverse workforce is a better and more productive one, because we can offer different things as females, whereas whether it's emotional intelligence or compassion or whatever you want to say, you know, I think that's key.
I think it is. I think you can see, you know, like the difference in the team where you do have that. And I think not to say that all women are a certain way and all men are a certain way. You know,
it's not black and white.
It's certainly not. But I think, you know, as a female shift manager, I think I offered something different, and probably had very different conversations to sort of what my male counterparts did. And you know, I do think that it does help to have just different people. You know, we offer different things, and so I think, again, a more diverse workforce, but it's about us women putting ourselves out there and putting ourselves up for these, you know, I want that job role, I want to be given a shot at doing that.
And maybe it does come back to having maybe a mentor or even a role model like yourself to look up to and say, okay, I can do this. And if I'm honest, it's instilled confidence in me today, because I joined as a placement 3 years ago, and to think that you were in a similar sort of position at the start of your career, and now here you are. It's
and I think it is encouraging to have these, like I say, build your own network, and you know, because everybody, you know, I know you've mentioned it a couple of times because we've had a chat before, everybody gets to a point sometimes where they think, I can't believe I'm doing this job, am I really good enough to do this, you know, am I able, why have they given me this, you know, but they have. Somebody did because somebody thought you were good enough, you know,
Yes.
and that's the case of reminding myself, and this is what I remind my children all of the time, because you know they have doubts, they you know, and that's again what I would want to really instill into everyone, that it isn't just women that suffer imposter syndrome. You know, I was really pleased that there was a name for it when I realised what it was, that you know,
Yeah.
so it's not just me then.
Yeah.
You know, but I think it is a real, you know, I'm really proud of what I've achieved in my career, and I would love to do more to encourage other people to you know to develop as well at this stage now.
And you really should be proud, and I think you just being here today is massive, really, for young girls my age watching this podcast. You are a true woman of steel, so thank you so much for joining us today, April, and I look forward to chatting soon.
Okay, thank you.
What a comeback. I loved talking to April. It put things into perspective for me, knowing where she started almost 20 years ago and where she's found herself today. I took a lot of comfort in her honesty and really appreciated her highlighting the feelings of self-doubt and imposter syndrome that she's felt along the way. I really resonated with this, and I know so many others will too. Key takeaway? Push yourself. And granted, it is easier said than done. And for whatever reason, mostly systemic, a lot of women in male-dominated industries don't always reap the rewards of their hard work. But for someone like April to stand up and show that you can achieve your goals, no matter how big, is massive. It can be overwhelming to pick the so-called correct career path. It's terrifying to take risks and put yourself out there. But for all us 20-somethings, and women at varying ages and stages of their careers, in fact, people at varying stages of their careers, as April so rightly said, just think about what you always wanted, and you can still have that. It's never too late. So join me next week for another conversation with a woman of steel.